All right, so welcome back to lesson number 6 in our Premiere course. Here we're going to put together a multicam sequence or a multicam edit. It's not too terribly difficult to do. It actually can save you a ton of time if you happen to do something like live event footage where you have multiple cameras recording the action at the same time. Before we do that, we've done all of this really great color grading work on all of our footage here, and we want to be able to retain that. We also want to be able to retain all of the adjustments that we made to the image size of these clips and the adjustment that we made to frame rate just by bringing these into a 30 frames per second sequence. So how we can do that is we're just going to make some nested sequences or subsequences. Either way, it's going to work about the same for us. So again, a subsequence will create a new sequence in your project window based on the clip that you make a subsequence of. So look, it has the frame rate of 29.97 frames per second, and it is 1920 by 1080. That was the case with this particular clip, but it wasn't the case with this one here. So if we make a subsequence, it matches those settings exactly. The difference between subsequence and nested sequence again is subsequence will make a new sequence in your project window. It's going to be named the same thing as the original sequence, so main cam sub and then a number since we have multiples, and then if we do a nested sequence, it will create another sequence that just has that clip in it, but that clip will be nested as its own sequence inside of this sequence, and you get to name it right off the bat too. So if I wanted to call this maybe camera 3, that might be a better approach for you. We are going to basically disregard this sequence, this main cam sequence where we used to what we use to conform all of our video there. So it's not going to matter if you have nested sequences in here or just the raw clips. So if you want to name all of your stuff, maybe nested sequences makes more sense. It'll save you a step there. So we might call this camera 1. Let's just do this for all these, and I'll just time lapse for you so you don't have to wait this whole time. So I have all of these things now as nested sequences. Remember, sequences can act just like clips. I can click, drag, and drop these things into other sequences. I can also treat them like clips when it comes to a multicam sequence. So we can pretend that these are our raw footage, or the program will kind of treat it as such. Only it will have all of that color grading information and sizing information and frame rate information kind of embedded in the file there. I named all of my cameras, but I named them in order of length, since if you looked at all these files and played through them and stuff, you notice that 2 of these are just a portion of the song and not the entirety of the song. So as these things can't be used all the time, I'd want those on my my last camera option, so I don't accidentally click those and jump to a black screen when these aren't available in the performance. All right, so now we have each of our 6 camera angles, and they are all their own sequence, so we can see all of those in our project window here. We won't mess with this main cam sequence much anymore because we are going to jump this out into a multicam sequence. How we're going to synchronize all of our clips, we're going to use Adobe Premiere's auto synchronization function, and it's not just a multicam sequence kind of thing. It can come in handy elsewhere. So if you happen to be shooting like a film and you have an external audio device and then camera audio at the same time, like your video has camera audio attached to it, and then you recorded something that's completely separate, you can synchronize how you may be used to doing so in other programs by syncing up the clap sound of the slate with the clap sound in the slate, or the visual of the clap from the video, and doing that kind of manually. But Premiere has some pretty good AI in here to help you out in terms of syncing. So just to show you kind of how this works, let's take camera 3 and camera 4, and I'm just going to put camera 4 on top of camera 3 here, and I'm going to select both. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go to synchronize, and I can synchronize based on the clip start, the clip's end, or audio here. And audio is the kind of powerful function here. Audio selected, and I press OK. It's going to analyze both of these video clips and their audio waveforms, and then it's going to put those audio waveforms as close as it can together. And it's usually very, very precise. It's not always that way, as we'll see when we do our multicam sequence, but here we go. It's finally finished analyzing. And if I'm taking a look at this, and we have our video here, and if I just shy out video track number 2, I can see that my video on both tracks is now synchronized. So that is the theory behind what's going to happen with our multicam sequence. So I don't really need this main cam sequence to make this happen for me. Instead, I'm just going to select camera 1 through camera 6 in my project window. Then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to create multi-camera source sequence. All right, so right off the bat, we have options for video clip name, audio clip name plus, and custom. So our multicam sequence name can be like, it would come out of this like camera 1 plus whatever you have over here. So camera 6 multicam, that's not ideal. Instead, maybe I name this like performance 1, since it, maybe I name it performance 1, or 1, not an exclamation point. And then I have all these options for synchronization. Like, how am I going to synchronize all 6 of these clips? How do you want it to? So you have a bunch of options here. You have in points, out points, time code, sound time code, and audio. And you also have options for clip markers if there are clip markers on your clips. Now, all of these things, the in and out points and clip markers, all of those are referring to clip attributes, not sequence attributes. And since we're working with these nested sequences, that's pretty important to us, right? So you can certainly manually set all of your synchronization points, especially if you don't trust the computer to do it, or if the computer can't do it, which we'll take a look at this quick workaround. If you are both working in nested sequences, which can't use these things, and the audio doesn't work, or the audio synchronization function doesn't work on all of your clips, which it won't with ours. Okay, so we are going to select audio initially. We're going to make sure that this option here is kind of up to you. Do you want to move all of your source clips to the processed clips bin? So that kind of keeps things organized, especially if you have a ton of clips and you're only taking a handful of them into this multicam sequence. It'll all just kind of move it into its own folder or bin in the project window. So I'm going to just toggle that off because I only have the 6 angles for my entire project here, and everything else is in its own folder. Okay, after this, sequence settings, you see that you can have, oh, this is the audio section. So you can have audio from a single source, one of your videos, so camera number 1, right? Like all we would hear is the audio from camera number 1, no matter which angle we're switching to in the program. We can have all cameras, which means that every single audio source that we have here, all 6 angles, even though 2 don't take the entirety of the song up there. But while they are there, we'll have all 6 audio tracks playing all at once. And then we have an option for switch audio. So the idea with switch audio is you're on camera number 1 and you're hearing the audio track that's the audio from camera number 1, and if we switch to camera number 4, we hear the audio from camera number 4. Since we haven't really listened to this and decided which camera we want to listen to, or maybe we want to mix a couple of the cameras together, let's just go ahead and select all cameras now, and we can eliminate some of those audio tracks after we get into it. Okay, so camera names down here, we have options for enumerate cameras, use track names, or use clip names. And since we went ahead and renamed all of our clips camera 1 through 6, I'm going to use clip names because that's what we have there. But we also can use the enumerate cameras, which is going to give us the same exact thing, right? Like it's each angle is going to be named 1 through 6. That said, it might not be the same order that we set up it might not be the same order that we set our sequences in. Use track names. There are video track names that we can create once we make our multicam sequence, and it can use those track names as names for those camera angles as well. I'm just going to use clip names. Now I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and we're going to see it process. It might take just a couple of minutes because we have 6 decently long clips of video and audio, and it's got to run through all 6 of those. All right, there it's finished, but it did have an audio synchronization failure. One or more of the clips in the current selection couldn't be synced, and we can see what that is when we actually break open our multicam sequence to see what's going on in there. But not all of them didn't sync. If you watch that progress bar kind of closely, you saw that a few of them ticked off the list and then some of them didn't. The reason for this is if you have like audio distortions, if the audio waveform looks considerably different than the other version. So if you look at camera number 2 there, you see how much different that looks than camera number 1. So it doesn't have the same peaks and valleys, probably because it's got clipping audio, like it was recorded through whatever microphone, the camera microphone, in a way that caused some distortion. That would be the reason why we wouldn't be able to synchronize stuff. So let me just show you what happened with the multicam sequence. If we double click this, you might think that it would open like a regular sequence. It has the little icon that looks a whole lot like a sequence, but it's actually going to open up in the source monitor, and we should see there are 4 angles to this, and they might not all pop up at once because this clip, or this angle starts before the other ones start. So if we scrub forward a little bit, we can see now we have all 4 angles here. Okay, and we could kind of work with these 4, but I would really like to get my other 2 in there as well. So we're going to go ahead and keep this source monitor pulled up over here. By the way, if for some reason when you double clicked this and it opened in the source monitor, you just saw 1 of these angles and not 4 options, or maybe 3 options or 5 options, if somehow your version of Adobe Premiere is better at syncing than mine, you can click this little wrench icon here and see different views, and we want the multi-camera view selected. If composite video is selected for some reason, we're just seeing the one view. So I I would anticipate that Premiere would know that you want to look at it in a multi-camera view, but if not, it's right there for you. So if we want to see this like kind of broken open in the timeline, instead we have to right click it in the project window and then click open in timeline. Okay, so now we see here is cameras 1, 3, 4, and let me just zoom in a little bit, 6. Now if we look at the anamorphic angle, that camera number 6, we see that those black bars are gone. We're just seeing this on the timeline though. So the timeline works a lot differently in Multicam. If we hop on over to the source, we can see what that would look like when we switch over to it. If we switched over to that particular angle, we'll just click it and then we can switch back to that composite video and see what it would actually look like when we select it when we're actually working in the multicam, and that's what it would look like. So no worries there, that's totally safe. All right, so we want to bring in camera number 2 and camera number 5, but we need to synchronize this stuff somehow, and we know audio won't work for us. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to use markers, and it's not going to be too hard for us to do because I set you guys up for this already. So hopefully your metadata will retain some markers in the original clips. That's not to say that they will be in the sequences because we created these new sequences. But let's go ahead and take a look real quick. If we double click on camera number 1, we open up that sequence, and then we can double click on main camera from camera number 1, and we can see, hey, there is a clip marker at this point. Now, if there isn't a clip marker at this point, you're going to have to do things kind of manually. You're going to have to find a very specific sound or very specific visual that appears at multiple angles. That way you can kind of match things up. If you do have this clip marker set for you, good for you. You can save yourself a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do here is I just clicked on the clip marker. You can also double click on the clip marker and see that time code here. But if we single click, it will take us to that specific time code. I can then copy this time code, or I can just type it into the timeline time code area, and then press enter on my keyboard, and that's going to jump my playhead directly on top of that marker that I've created. I'll go ahead and create another marker not on the clip, so I'm going to just deselect the clip and press M on my keyboard, and now I have a marker for my my sequence. So now if I jump back to Performance 1 Multicam, now I can see that I have a marker on, it appears to be the clip for camera 1 here, but it is for the nested sequence. And now if I do the same thing for camera number 2, which didn't exist, so double click camera number 2 and we're in there. We're gonna double click the original clip. We are going to click on the marker area. We're gonna copy out that time code. We're gonna paste it into the time code area, jump there, and now deselect my my clip in here, press M on my keyboard, and there we go. We have another marker on my sequence. So camera number 2, that nested sequence, is not in the multicam sequence yet, but we can click and drag it. And you, if you have your magnetic snap in timeline selection on, we can see that things magnetize not only to clip beginnings and ends, but also you can match up markers. You can see it kind of highlight there, and you can feel it snap if you're actually doing it. Okay, so now camera 2 is loaded up, and if I go back to looking at my multicam sequence in my source monitor, I'll just double click there. Now I can see that I have 5 angles, which is great, and we need to add 1 more. We're going to do the same exact method. I'm just going to move my camera number 6 upward so I make some room for camera number 5. And then we're going to open up camera number 5. We're going to open up the source clip from camera number 5, navigate over to the marker there, and I'm just going to type it in here this time. That way you can see that that works too. We can type in 34 semicolon 25. Oops. We can type in 34 semicolon 25 and press enter, and we are right on top of it. Deselect the clip from there, press M, and now we have a clip, a timeline marker. Jump back to the performance, and we will drag and drop that video into video track number 5. We can match up our marker with those other areas, and now we have all 6 cameras synced together. We have all of our color grading done on these, and we have some choices to make now. So if we take a listen to this timeline, that's what our audio is going to sound like, because we have selected all tracks for our audio. So let's give it a listen. So it's not good, but it is it's pretty bad. It's not as bad as I thought, but it's not great. At this point, we might want to do a little bit of stuff with our audio. We're going to cover audio in its entirety in the very next lesson. So we're not going to do any of our like mixing yet, but at the same time, we might want to pick which track sounds the best as we cut this thing in Multicam. That way we're not listening to a bunch of stuff at once, and we're also not listening to the worst version of this music. So if it's clipping really badly and stuff, we can deal with that. So our audio levels over here look a lot different than what they normally do. Normally we see 2 audio channels if we're working on a stereo project. So if you're working with these clips, each of them were recorded individually stereo, but now that we've brought all of them into a multicam sequence and we selected that all cameras option, we now have several channels of audio, and all of them are able to be monitored separately. You see these little buttons underneath the audio levels here. I just muted out the one that I would hear, but if I unmute it, I'm going to be hearing whatever audio is coming through the first 2 channels through my speakers. So I hear that, and if I select that, my audio is not going to change at all. But if I select the next one and deselect the other one, I'm now hearing a different camera's audio. If I do the next one over, I'm hearing the third camera's audio, and that is much, much cleaner. And I can listen to the fourth one as well. And that one's really bad. But the third one is not too bad at all. It's not associated with this video at all. It's it looks like it's from camera number 3 here, and I would greatly prefer to listen to that one initially while I'm doing my multicam, so I'm not hearing that really badly clipped audio track. Okay, so now that that is selected, that's what I'm going to be hearing as I monitor. Okay, so our life should be a little bit easier, being able to monitor the audio that we want to monitor as we work. A couple of extra things that we need to do to kind of set this thing up, and maybe they already work for you, but let's try them out. So if we double click that performance 1 or whatever you named your multicam sequence, and we jump back into our source monitor here, we have those 6 angles that we can see. There is an option here that we can kind of change the order of things if we need to. So if we click on the settings wrench icon there, we can click on edit cameras, and we have the option to move cameras around. So right now camera 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in that order specifically, but if say I wanted to move flip-flop camera 3 and camera 2. I can click and drag that upward, and now it's camera 1. Then camera 3 is now in the number 2 spot, and camera 2 is now in the number 3 spot. It is a little bit tricky if you try doing this. Intuitively, you should be able to click, drag, and drop it anywhere approximately in that area, but you really do have to get it right in between two of the camera angles for it to work for you. Okay, so I'm going to keep it at 1 through 6 like that because I set it up that way, but it's good to know that you can do that in here. I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and now now there's a couple of things that I want to adjust with my program monitor before I begin actually cutting this thing. We need a couple of buttons here. So we added these 2 buttons earlier, the title safe and action safe area, and the loop button. If we add buttons and we just click and drag those away, they'll go away, so we don't need those for now. But we do need is what we do need is this multi-camera record on off toggle, and we need the toggle multi-camera view. We need both of those buttons. We could also do this with the wrench icon here, but we might go back and forth with this during multi-camera, so it makes sense to have those couple of buttons here. All right, we are almost there. I know it's a lot of setup, but all this setup really makes it so we can cut much quicker. So if you do have a live event product that you need to create, in theory that could go an hour long, like an hour-long wedding, or maybe a concert performance just like this. All you would have to do is set up your project, and your edit could be as fast as just watching the concert over again. So it could save you a ton of time. If you've ever cut together live event footage in a way that wasn't a multicam sequence, I think that this will be a revelation for you. Okay, so so the next thing we need to do is we need to make a new sequence with our multicam sequence in it. So we know how to do that. We're just going to click and drag that multicam sequence into the new items button, and that's going to create a new sequence for us that has performance 1 inside of it. So we have performance 1 multicam and performance 1 regular sequence with the multicam inside of it. So don't get lost in terms of the organization here. So I can probably call this performance edit, and I can understand it that that's a little bit different. I can also just look at the little icon next to it and know that one is a multicam and the other one is a regular sequence. All right, from here, before we start actually recording, we have to toggle on the multi-camera view. And now we can see all 6 of those angles. Not all of them have video just yet, but once we scrub forward a little bit, we can see that there are 5 cameras, and then I assume a 6th camera comes in at some point. And we could jump, there's the 6th camera there. We can jump angles just by clicking here between cameras 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But we can also use the numbers on our keyboard. So I'm pressing number 1 now, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, and 6. Your number pad will not work for this. I've tried a bunch of different ways to get my number pad to work for this, but it never wants to work for me. So those, until Adobe makes an update and stuff, you kind of just have to work with the keyboard numbers. Okay, so since we know how to switch between these things, first thing we need to do is jump to the beginning of our video and make sure we're on the video that actually has some video, right? We don't want to just be on darkness while there's some sound going on. So I'm just going to press 3 on my keyboard, and that means that if I scrubbed through here, all I'm seeing is number 3. Okay, so here's where the magic begins. I'm just going to tilde up here because I don't even need to see my timeline while this is going on. As soon as I press the record button here, I'm ready to go. So I'll press the record button. I'll press play, stop, toggle. Okay, and we're on. number 3 here. And if I want to change to angle number 2, I can just press number 2 on my keyboard, and you see a red rectangle there. That means that I'm recording angle number 2. I can jump to angle number 1. Now I'm recording that. Okay, I can jump to angle number up to 5 now. I don't want to jump back to angle number 2 because there's a camera issue going on, but I can jump to 3 or even to 1. I haven't done much with 4 yet, so I might do 4. And now 2 is ready for me, so I can jump back to 2. And 6 is now available to me, so I can jump to 6. Go back to 4. Back to 1 if I'd like. And 2 as soon as the lead singer comes in. Okay, I'm just going to pause there. I'm not going to go through the whole song on you. I'm going to tilde out and take a look at my timeline now. And my timeline has a whole bunch of cuts on it, right? So I can see all of these cuts. I can jump out of the multi-camera view so I can see what's actually going on. I'm just going to mute this so you guys don't have to hear what's going on here. And I can see all those cuts that I made, which are done instantly. So we can kind of treat this like we were technical directing live television. Now there's a couple of things that you might want to do after you've cut your stuff together. If maybe you made a mistake or you want to adjust things. It works a lot like regular clips on your timeline. So let's say you wanted to use like the rolling edit. You can adjust where the cut actually goes if you meant to make this cut, but it was just a little bit off in terms of timing, like you wanted to hit on that cowbell noise or something like that. You can adjust where that cut actually lands, and it would still move from this angle to this angle. Now, if you pressed the wrong button, like if we wanted to go from this wide shot to a close-up, but we picked another wide shot. If we select any of these clips and then back in the multi-camera view, I just adjust this to, I wanted to cut to the drummer at this point. Okay, now if I play this back, I'll just jump out of that multi-camera view. We will move to the drummer instead of that other wide shot. And maybe that cut doesn't look so great because we do that little bit of a camera move. I can use the rolling edit and just move that over. And now that looks much better. Okay, and then the thing that I get a lot is how do you delete a cut? Like you made a cut, but you want to get rid of that cut. So you can do this also in your regular timeline stuff. It's just kind of a rare thing that you would want to do that. So here's how you would have to do it. So you know how you can click clips and see them. If you zoom way in on your timeline, you can also actually select a cut. That is selecting a cut there. And if I tried to press delete on this cut, it's not going to do anything for me. And that's because it doesn't really know what to do. Should it replace this clip with that one or vice versa? So initially you're going to have to make sure that both of these two clips are the same before you can delete that cut. So this was angle number 4, and if we change the drummer to angle number 4 as well, and we played this back, it would look like it's all just the one angle. And you know, honestly, you could leave the cut there and that's going to do the same thing as deleting a cut. But if you want to be able to see your cuts for one reason or another, we can just click that, click the cut now and press delete, and the cut is gone, but you haven't ripple deleted any of your footage. There's no issue with your sync or anything like that. So that's basically it. You would run through the entirety of a song or a performance or any kind of live event, making cuts along the way, and then adjust those things after the fact if you need to. But it's a great way to do a very long edit very quickly and efficiently. So that'll wrap up lesson number 6, and in lesson number 7 we'll work with the same footage and we will mix this audio.